Hi. So I want to give you a quick crash course on modern drama or modern plays, if you will. So hopefully you learned something today. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. So here we go. First, let's talk about some of the history behind plays. So at the very beginning, plays in like ancient Greece and whatnot were very monotone. People would just stand there and speak their lines. And if you were sitting too far back, well, then sucks to be you. Sometimes they would wear masks to let you know what emotion that they were supposed to be instilling. Like if they were afraid, they would wear a mask that showed fear, and that's where the famous sad and happy face masks for that symbolize theater come from. It was very drab, very boring, just a couple of guys speaking to each other in togas. So then came Shakespeare, and Shakespeare turned theater on its head. One of the reasons we celebrate Shakespeare even to this day is his huge, huge influence, life changing influence on theater itself. He created huge sets, he created huge stages, installed things like trapdoors and pulley systems, gave characters costumes, told his actors to emote basically larger than life, to be or not to be, that sort of thing. And that way, everyone could really feel what was going on stage. It wasn't enough to just watch the thing. He wanted basically audience participation. He wanted people to feel what his characters were saying. And so he had these larger than life characters, these princes, these kings, things like that. And they would have these huge, colorful costumes and robust hand gestures and just move about the stage and explore the scene, chew up the scenery, if you will. Now we come to modern theater. And Henrik Ibsen, who is the author of the play that we're going to focus heavily on, uh, he wrote a play called A Doll's House. And his whole thing, he's considered by many to be basically the father of modern drama, if you will. And so his ideas were that basically you don't have to have these characters that are larger than life. You don't have to have these kings and these princes and these people that we can't relate to. Everybody has their own drama. Everybody goes through their own uh, mess in life. And he was like, that's fascinating. Why not show people something that they can actually relate to? And so he was really a pioneer in showing people characters that they could actually relate to. The play A Doll's House that we're going to focus on is about a middle aged, middle income couple. She's a housewife with two kids, and he's a banker, a bank manager. They're not royalty, they're not larger than life, they don't have, these huge dramas, they have everyday problems. They're people that we can relate to that are mirrors of ourselves. And that's really fascinating to a lot of people. And that's kind of where theater is today, the everyday hero. You have these stages that aren't just, a castle wall and maybe a chair, but you have well furnished stages that look legitimately like a bedroom. So, anyway, that's where drama is today. Now, we have something called naturalistic theater, and that is basically a theater set that shines a light on painful realities. That basically the whole point of that kind of play is to basically shine a light on people and what we go through and how our lives, our environment shape who we are as individuals. And it's not always pretty because let's face it, life isn't always pretty. I mean, it's realistic in that sense. So, we're going to be focusing on, again, A Doll's House, as you see in the picture here. And A Doll's House is what is known as a well-made play. And that means it's 3 acts, and each act serves a specific purpose. So 3-act play, it's shorter than Shakespeare, but it's longer than a one-act play, obviously. So Act 1, you're going to get exposition. You're going to get background about the characters, about the conflict. Okay, you're going to get the what's happening. Act 2 is going to focus on the situation building, the conflicts evolving, things getting heavier and more important and more dangerous and more worrisome for people. You get a bit of the why. And then in Act 3, it's all about what happens, the how it all resolves into some sort of conclusion. So again, Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House is what is called a problem play, and it's a play that deals with social issues. Yes, it's about a middle-income banker and his wife, but they're more than just that. They are representations, they are symbols of societal issues, gender issues. As you'll see in this particular play, she represents a lot of what most women were going through at that time, and he represents the attitudes of most men at that time. So they are representations of things larger than themselves to stimulate discussion. That's the whole point of these kinds of plays, is to stimulate thought and discussion among the audience. So let's talk about two main things, plot and character. With a plot in a modern play, every character that's in that play is going to serve a purpose. There are no extraneous characters. There are no fluff characters that are just there for comic relief or whatever, like in Shakespeare's time. Every character in that scene is there for a reason, and you're going to see that in A Doll's House. This means that everything that they say, everything that they do is going to have consequences, and that's what makes it interesting. As I put down here, characters plus goals plus plus opposition create conflict, and conflict makes it interesting, makes you want to turn the page, so to speak. So characters, these are going to be characters that you're not going to get a lot of physical description beyond anything like very superficial, because it doesn't matter. That on stage, Nora, the main female protagonist in this play, she could be played by a blonde, brunette, a redhead. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who plays Torvald, because that's not the issue. What's at stake, or what the issue is their characterization, what they represent. And again, because you're not in a play going to have a lot of narration, everything that you learn about what's happening with the conflict, with the plot, with the characters, with their backstories, with their exposition, all of that's going to be delivered through dialogue. And you're going to have monologues and soliloquies, and maybe not as robust or as much as you'd see in something like Hamlet, but you're still going to have monologues. You're still going to have characters speaking to other characters in long speeches, because we as the audience, we can't see inside the main character's head, and it's only through that monologue that we understand what they're thinking or feeling. So then let's talk about props. You're going to see very few props in A Doll's House. But every prop you see, every prop that is interacted with, matters. If our main character slams a door shut, or grabs and clutches a certain letter, or things like that, or takes a macaroon in her mouth and hides it or eats it or whatever, those matter to the point of the play, to the plot of the play, to the characters of the play, to the themes, to the overall ideas of what these characters represent. Symbols matter. Props matter in a play. They are symbols. When Hamlet holds up the skull of Uric, that mattered. That symbolized a lot of different things. So if you see a character, especially in a modern play, interact with something physically, pay attention to the thing that they're interacting with. It matters. So that'll do it for this presentation. I know that was short and sweet, but we got a lot to cover, got a lot of ground to cover, and I just kind of wanted to give you some basics.